Well, g'day everyone. So a couple of days ago, I was doing a stream and made a comment that atheists choose not to believe, and Paul Cammish, an atheist, made a comment in the side chat, I didn't choose, or I don't choose not to believe. I don't choose not to believe. Yes, that's exactly what he typed. I disagree with that statement. He does choose not to believe, so we're going to examine that. I've sent Paul a link. I'm waiting for him to join. Now, yesterday I was going to do the stream, but I had a rough night's sleep. And to organise the best time is difficult because Paul's up and available about the time that I'm going to bed, and then about the time when he's thinking about going to bed is when I wake up and go to work. So trying to find a time that works has been difficult. And it only works when Paul has a day off. And then I squeeze it in either in my early evening, which I don't think I've got to work once yet, or in my early morning, if I wake up early enough. And I did this morning. So I assume it's Paul's early evening, or no, actually it'd be his later evening. What's the time there? He's 10 hours behind me, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it's middle to late evening for him, if I remember correctly. And Paul's just said, just give me 2 minutes, just getting in the shed. All these different time zones. But obviously I'm lying about that because the Earth is flat. It's not true that there are different time zones. That is light reflecting off something back there. Oh, that must be light reflecting through the green screen. There's a light source right there. Oh, the fun of recording and trying to set things up. So how's everyone's day? Oh, by the way, when someone suggested Office Space the other day, I was trying to think of Kevin Smith. Now I can't remember why I was trying to think of Kevin Smith. Clerks. Clerks is Kevin Smith, not Office Space. And Jay and Silent Bob. More rats. There we go. And there's Paul.
Oh, we already live, are we?
Oh, we are already live, yes.
All right.
I was trying to get live so that we could see if give people a little bit of time to turn up, but we've only got one viewer at the moment according to YouTube.
All right, there is a you can't do it on this one, can you? Sometimes I was trying to see. So I noticed a couple of channels when you come in, you can when you do the StreamYard, you can do it so that your guests can also stream it to their channel as well. I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh, yeah, I've never figured out how to do that.
Yeah, I think it's when you go live on your channel, or just before you go live, there's a little box now comes up and says allow guests to stream to their channel, I think. So,
yeah.
It doesn't matter, like.
Did you want to stream this as well?
I mean, I would have done, but it's not important.
Oh, okay.
I just thought if it was there, I would have done it, and I just looked, and it's not there, so you hadn't clicked it to start with. But no, it's not important.
Yeah, I've never seen that. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I managed to do it once on. I can't remember whose channel it was. But when I came in, it said, "Do you want to stream this to your channel?" I thought, "Oh yeah," so I did. So I clicked on it. So I went live at the same time. The only downfall is once you've clicked yes, you aren't in control of it. So once you leave, it carries on broadcasting, which seems a bit it's a bit that bit doesn't work very well. But yeah, and then I noticed when I went live once that it gave me the option that if I was going to have guests in, to allow them to stream it to their channel as well. Nobody was coming in, so I didn't even click on it. But if I had have done, when they'd have gone onto StreamYard, it would have given them an option then to live stream it to their channel. I think it's a relatively new thing that's come up with StreamYard.
Yeah, they're constantly trying to improve it.
Yeah.
I can share the video with you if you want once we're finished.
Yeah, I mean, you could do. Yeah, I mean, I might. Depends how it goes. I might put it on my channel. I'm just going to turn my heating down because it's getting warm.
Yeah, it's been close to 12 degrees here in the morning the last week or so.
Right. We've had a fairly good day today, actually. It's been quite sunny, but sea fret's just starting to come in, so it's getting a little bit chilly now. But I put the heating on, and it doesn't take long to get warm in here.
Our days are still getting up to 30 and over.
Yeah, because you'll be starting to come into your winter now, aren't you?
Yes, and I'll just convert that to Fahrenheit for our American listeners. That's about 50 that it got down to, and 30 is 80. So it's easily still getting up over 80 during the day, which is a little bit warm for me, but I don't want it too cold for too long. It's nice to be able to warm up during the day. So I don't know if I told you, Paul, but my wife and I got a new job. We're managing a B&B / motel 6-room deal. We do the cleaning and the booking and all of that.
Very good.
And he's provided us with accommodation as well. A little 3-room apartment. So the bathroom's one of the rooms, bedroom, and then a kitchen living area.
Right.
Which is pretty good for us.
Is this going to be like a permanent position, or is it sort of seasonal? Or
no, he's hoping that he's been looking for someone that could stay permanently. That sees it as their job for the rest of their lives, pretty much, which suits us perfectly. That's exactly what we've been looking for. And it's only about 3 hours work a day on average, which suits us really well as well. It gives us the flexibility, and we're on call 24/7, but it's not very demanding. And if we need to, we pass them the phone, the owners, and say, we got to go. We've got a doctor's appointment, or every so often we could take a break or whatever, and they look after the business till we get back.
No, right, good.
But yeah, Margie's really happy about. She enjoys that sort of thing, cleaning rooms and stuff like that. So that's one of the changes in our life that's occurred.
Well, it sounds like a good one.
Yeah. So how's it going your end? You been flying?
No, I haven't done any flying since before COVID. It sort of like closed everything down, and to be honest, I never really got started back up with it again. Because I'd have to do all the. Yeah, unfortunately, you've got to do. I have what you call a. Well, I still have it. What you call a national private pilot's license, which is basically like for hobbies, for people who want to just like fly on a weekend. So you've got your normal private pilot's license, which is basically a stepping stone, really, for going commercial. But that's all that was available years ago. And then they introduced what they call a national private pilot's license, which for people like me who just want to do it recreational. And you've got to do 6 hours flying per year to stay current, which isn't very difficult to do. But unfortunately, because of COVID, the rulings were that all clubs and everything closed down. Basically, you couldn't have, you know what it was like when COVID was on. So all the clubs basically closed down. The only people that could still fly were people who actually owned their own aircraft. So they could go to the airfield and still fly their own aircraft. But because I would have to hire the aircraft from the club, we weren't allowed to do it. But I mean, you couldn't be more isolated than flying in a plane on your own, could you?
Yeah, I don't understand a lot of the things that occurred over the last 3 years. It's bizarre to me. The only thing that makes sense of it, in my opinion, is that it was a deliberate attempt to try and control people and see how much they could shut us down. And, you know, here I am with my tinfoil hat on, but I'm trying to make sense of it. And that's the only thing that makes sense. It ties in with Klaus Schwab saying, you will own nothing and you will be happy. That's what they're attempting to do to us. They're trying to destroy the rights and freedoms and everything else of the little people. And only at the top, the so-called elite. Someone told me the other day we should stop calling them the elite. We should start calling them the leeches.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in that camp. I mean, I do believe that the virus was real. There was plenty of people I know that had it. And it certainly wasn't something they'd had before. It wasn't just like the flu. There was definitely people getting it. I mean, we had a couple of people at work.
No, I'm not. You misunderstand me. I'm not talking about the virus. I'm talking about the response to the virus.
Yeah, I think the total.
I'm not questioning the virus at all. I'm questioning the response.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but I think that what it was is they didn't know how to handle it. They really didn't know how to handle it. And
for
also,
3 years. See, I remember when it first came out, early 2020. We'll shut down for two weeks. That's what they initially told us. 3 years later, they're still trying to shut us down. They're still, pushing because people are allowing them to. People are saying they initially said that they would shut us down so that they could flatten the curve. I remember very clearly that's how it all started. And we flattened the curve. We didn't overwhelm our hospital systems. And then they kept shutting us down when the curve had been flattened and there were no spikes. There were no overwhelming of the hospital system happening. But for 3 years, we continued to put up with fascist governments shutting us down. And maybe you see it differently than me, but that's very clearly.
We didn't get it quite like that. We had two shutdowns. That was it. That's all we had. The rest of it then was just social distancing and things like that. So we only had 2 shutdowns, really.
And wearing the mask. And if you're not wearing the mask, they shut you down.
Again, the wearing of the mask, definitely 100% in the UK. That was the UK people's population's fault. They did it to themselves. The government said, and even the medical people came on the TVs and were saying, if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. But we're not going to force people to wear a mask because in our opinion, it doesn't do that much good. The virus is that small. It would get through the mask anyway. They explained all this. And people, they explained this. But what happened was the general public went, you should make them wear masks. You should make everybody wear masks. You should make... And in the end, I think the government just went, oh, bloody... Right, everyone wear a mask. I think they were frustrated with it because they were absolutely adamant. No, we're not going to make people wear masks. And every time we had a 6 o'clock news briefing, every night, 6 o'clock, where they go through everything, and then people from the general public could ask questions. And I'm not joking. Every night, somebody would say, why aren't you making everybody wear masks? And they'll go, we're not going to make people wear masks. If you want to wear a mask, by all means, do that. Nobody's stopping you. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. But we're not going to make the general population do it. And this went on day after day after day. And in the end, after 2 or 3 weeks of it, the government I think they just give up and just went, clearly this is what the public want. We'll force everybody to wear a mask. So that's what they did. It's crazy. Yeah. And I mean, there's still people now, I cannot get my head around it. There's people now in cars on their own
with masks on.
And you're like, what? Yeah. Where's the thinking? Where's the logic going here? And
there is none. There's no logic. It's feelings.
No,
I had someone point out to me that wearing the mask is like hanging the swastika out your window in Nazi Germany. You're saying to the powers that be, the people that are trying to lock us down, and sounds like your government was pushing the opposite direction, but my government definitely wasn't. Both sides, Conservative and Labor. No, we got to lock down for the safety of everybody, and almost nobody was pushing back against it. There were a couple of rallies here and there, and eventually, many months too late, years too late, in my opinion, the government started to back down a bit because people had started to go, this is fascism. And eventually they shut down. But yeah, I have two explanations for what you just described of people saying every night, why aren't you requiring people to wear masks? One is human beings are stupid, and you just gave a perfect example. People alone in their cars with masks on. The height of stupidity. It's like, who are you infecting? Do you think the car's going to get the virus? Unbelievable. That one, but I still think that there was a push from the leeches at the top of society, at the rich and powerful are trying to take control of our world, and they were pushing for this. They saw this virus as an opportunity to say, let's see if we can enforce a shutdown of the whole world. Let's do a test run with this virus. They didn't. I'm not saying they manufactured the virus. There is some evidence that the virus was released deliberately, but I'm not sure that they were behind it. I'm not sure exactly what was going on there. I haven't figured that out yet. But when it did happen, when they started to hear about it and they heard how dangerous it was, it's like, or that they could say that it was dangerous, and it was for people with really severe health conditions, or people who were quite older. Over 80, the risk of death from COVID really rose up a lot. So they could play it as being extremely dangerous, but obviously it wasn't as dangerous as they kept pushing.
No, it wasn't. The problem with it was very, very infectious.
Yes.
So I mean, we've got viruses now which are 99% chance they're going to kill you, but the infection rate is very, very small, so we don't panic about it. I mean, the AIDS virus back in the 80s was one of them, but it wasn't something we needed to shut down with. But obviously, that had almost 100% death rate on it. This didn't have 100% death rate or anything even remotely close to it, but unfortunately, it was easily infected round to everybody. That was the problem, and they just overreacted on it. But I looked into at the time how we reacted during the Spanish flu. After the First World War, and believe it or not, we reacted very similar back then as well. They even had them wearing masks back then. So
eventually we did, but there were a lot of people. So it was the end of World War I, and there were a lot of people that were told, don't go to the celebrations for the end of World War I because we've got this Spanish flu thing, but they didn't enforce it. And so it did spread a lot further, but it was also a lot more dangerous. And maybe it was more dangerous because of the state of medicine then. But yeah, heaps of people died, and people tried to use that and say, oh, we need to shut down as hard as they needed to shut down. Actually, no, we didn't, because the state of our medicine is way better than it was back in 1918 and 1919. But, we were right to be cautious in those first 2 weeks. But after that, and we started to get a handle on, hang on, what is this? What's going on? No, it's not as dangerous. Yes, for elderly people, aged care homes, places like that, yes, we do need to be more careful, but not the whole population everywhere.
No, what they should have done was, introduce social distancing, maybe only let a certain amount of people in a room at any one time, try and keep them apart as much as you can. Those that are vulnerable, yes, get them to self-isolate at home or work from home if they can do. But everybody who's fit and healthy, be cautious. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. Make sure you sanitize your hands when you're touching things. Try to keep social distancing. And the country wouldn't have been in the state that it was if they'd have done that, because that's what they did eventually. We got to that stage, and that's what they bloody should have done to start with. But anyway, they didn't.
And there were countries like Sweden that did that. Tell people, if you want to wear masks, fine, but just go about your lives. Go out and get some fresh air. Whereas what we were told was the exact opposite. Oh, you're not allowed to go outside. Stay inside. Always wear your mask. And it's like, that's not good for people's health. No. The best thing for people's health is to get out there. The virus doesn't want to be out there. The virus wants people cooped up inside.
Yeah.
Oh. Anyway.
Are we going to do our little thing on belief, wasn't it? That's how it. What was it? It was a stream that you was doing, and you mentioned something about belief.
Well, I said that atheists choose not to believe, and you said you didn't choose.
Yes, I said belief isn't a choice. That's right. Yeah, I said that
you don't choose not to believe. So I'd like to investigate that. I would say that every belief and non-belief that people have is a choice. Now, I suspect that you will claim that you don't see the evidence, so you don't believe because the evidence isn't there. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I've actually got myself a little thing here and read it too, so you can see. I've tried to write it down exactly what my position is when it comes to belief. Right. So to me, belief is the acceptance that a claim is true, and acceptance is a result of being convinced. Now, you can be convinced for good reasons, or you can be convinced for bad reasons. But I'm not actually convinced that you can be convinced simply by an exercise of will. So you can't will yourself to believe something. For example, if I was to tell you that I'll pay you £1,000 if you sincerely believe that I have a fired breathing dragon living in my shed next door, you can't do it. You can say you believe it. You can even want to believe it because you'd like to have the money. But you can't, in fact, will yourself to believe it. Why? Because there's no evidence for that claim, and there's lots of evidence against it. And why would you want to choose your beliefs? Now, I don't have a choice in what I believe. I can choose to look at the evidence, but I can't choose what I find when I look at that evidence. And it's that evidence that enforces my belief to believe in one thing or not to believe in another thing. So that's basically where I stand on belief. And when I say that you can't choose your belief, that's basically my stance and why I don't think any belief, or I certainly don't think I hold a belief that I have chosen to believe. Now, I could have biases. I accept that I might be biased to one, but I always try to look, no matter what it is, at the opposite evidence as well. Flat earthers are a good example. They will absolutely ignore the evidence that is presented to them because they have a bias. They want to believe that this is true, and they will not look at the evidence. They'll always try and find a way of not believing that evidence or coming up with excuses why that evidence is false. But if you're being true to yourself, you can't choose to believe something. You've got to look at the evidence and you become convinced that something is either true or false. It doesn't mean what you believe is actually true. It could be wrong.
Exactly. So, Paul, I never said what you've just said. So you are misunderstanding what I mean by choosing to believe. You think that means to will to believe something, even though you know there's no evidence. And I never said anything of the sort.
Right.
You've injected all of that into what I said, and what I said is that
Yeah,
we choose our
only
beliefs.
literally a couple
We
of things.
hang on, and you talked for a while. Let me respond. I said we choose our beliefs. Now you've told me how you choose your beliefs. You choose your beliefs based on evidence, right? And if you don't see enough evidence, then you choose not to believe the thing because the evidence isn't there. Because that's how you choose to believe. You choose to believe based on what you could.
I'm just saying.
Okay, I'll just let you talk. I'll just let you talk then.
No, I thought we were having a conversation.
Well, I let you talk, Paul. You didn't let me have a conversation while you were talking. I waited for you to finish because you had this long stream of things that you wanted to say. Now I'm trying to comment on all of the things that you said and you're interrupting me. So which one are we doing?
Go on. Yeah, I'll let you go. Yeah, go on.
Right. So you said that you choose to believe. Now, you don't like to use that terminology because choose to believe for you appears to mean you somehow inject into choose to believe against the evidence. And I never said anything of the sort. You said that you choose to believe based on the evidence. Those aren't your words, but I'm telling you what I mean by choose to believe. People have all sorts of reasons for why they choose to believe. And you even agreed that people can believe because they believe that the evidence is there, even though it isn't. Right? But you're taking... I don't understand the position that you're taking because it's still a choice that you're making to believe. You're just talking about how the person chooses to believe, how they make their choices about how they believe. And I don't understand how that contradicts anything that I said.
Because you said that atheists choose not to believe in the God, and that isn't the case. I don't choose.
Yeah, because you're reinterpreting that. You're reinterpreting that to mean choose against the evidence. And I didn't say that. You're choosing to believe that there is no God because you don't believe that the evidence is there.
No, but it's not a conscious choice not to believe. Now, if the Christian God is true, do you not think that I'd want that to be true? I would like that to be true. I mean, brilliant. All I've got to do is believe in God, believe in Jesus Christ and everlasting life. I mean, of course, I'd like that to be true.
Paul, every time you
believe it.
Paul, every time you start talking in response to what I say, you inject all of these other terms like forced to believe. You just injected two other terms that I can't remember now. I'm not saying that you're forced to believe. I'm not saying whether you want to believe. I didn't say anything of that sort. I said it's a choice to believe. And your choice to believe, according to you, is based on what you see of the evidence. That's your choice. I never said anything different than that. Well, and you're injecting all of these other ideas into the words that I used.
Well, I'm not meaning to. I'm just trying to explain that it's not a choice. You become convinced that something is true, and once the evidence is presented to you, then I've got no choice. It's not like a choice to believe it. And that's what I said at the end. Whereas I can choose to look for evidence, but I can't choose what I find. So whatever I find, I can't argue against. So then it doesn't.
No, Paul, you're still not hearing me. That is the choice you've made. That's the choice that you've made to decide how to choose what to believe. And you admitted that there are people that make other choices about how they believe.
Yeah, we can have all our biases.
Exactly. And that's all I'm talking about why people choose to believe what they believe. I'm not injecting all of the other things that you mentioned about forcing people to believe against their will or choosing to believe something because you want to. Or I didn't mention any of those things when I said that atheists make the choice to believe there is no God. I didn't say how or why. You're presenting your how and why, but I didn't make any comment on that. It's still a choice. You've provided your choice.
Okay, so how do I choose?
It's not the choice that every atheist makes.
How do I choose not to believe?
How do you choose not to believe?
You're saying I choose not to believe in a God. How do I choose not to hold that belief when I would actually like that belief to be true?
You've just told us, Paul, you choose not to believe because you don't see that there's the evidence.
Because I haven't been convinced.
Exactly.
Which is
And I'm not
a choice to be
disagreeing.
convinced.
Paul, you're trying to treat it as though I'm disagreeing with any of those things. I haven't disagreed with a single one of the things. That's exactly your position. I don't disagree.
So the statement that atheists choose not to believe isn't a correct statement, then, is it?
By your definition of it, but by my definition of it, it is a correct statement. And I've told you my definition, and you're not disagreeing with my definition. You're changing what that phrase means and saying, oh, it's not true then. But that's not what I mean by it.
Well, I don't understand what you mean then.
Well, let me explain it again. Let me explain it again. I mean exactly what you're saying. That is how you choose. You choose to look at the evidence, and you look at the evidence and go, I don't see any evidence for God, so I don't believe God exists. That's exactly what I mean by you choose not to believe. For you, that is how your choice process has occurred.
Because I could be choosing to believe. I may want this to be true, and then I look at the evidence, and the evidence doesn't convince me that this is true. So there again, that is not a choice to believe or not.
Paul, please listen to me. I'm not saying that's how you did it. I'm saying that the choice process that you made is exactly how you made it. That is the choice that you made. Exactly how you made it is your choice process. I'm not saying that you want to believe it and you believing against the evidence and the evidence isn't there, but I'm still going to believe. I never said anything of the sort. Your choice is exactly how you just described your choice. And that's all I'm talking about. Everybody makes their choices differently. Most people would want to claim that they do it based on the evidence, but all sorts of people say that they do it based on the evidence and come to different conclusions. And the choices that they make in investigating the evidence and deciding whether it is evidence or not, and how they look at the evidence, is part of the choice process that causes them to come to a conclusion about what they believe to be true. Do you believe that there is no God?
No.
And is that a choice that you've made?
No.
Why? Why are you saying that's not a choice that you've made? Has someone forced you to believe that there is no God?
No, it's due to the evidence that I've been convinced.
The choices that you've made. The choices that you've made in looking at the evidence and what you consider to be evidence.
Yeah, so I've had the choice to look at the evidence and I've had the choice to investigate. And at the end of doing that, I haven't been convinced that a God exists. So therefore,
and that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying anything different than that. That is your choice process. And that's how you've come to the conclusion to choose not to believe, because you don't believe that the evidence is there.
It's not necessarily to do with God, though. I mean, belief is to do with anything. It doesn't have to be on a God.
I was just using that as an example. It's the choice about anything. I completely agree with you that we make choices about everything that we believe, and your choice process, according to you, is always based on evidence. I'm not disagreeing with that at all. I believe that that's at least what you believe, and I have no comment contrary to that at this stage. Right? I do believe that you agreed that there are people that claim to believe the evidence, but the evidence isn't actually there. They just believe that the evidence is there. Correct?
Or they choose not to, like flat earthers, they choose not to actually look at the evidence, or they choose not to look. Yes. That's what I'm saying. You can choose to investigate something, and if you do decide to investigate something, you can't choose what you find, and it's what you find that is going to convince you one way or the other. And
not everybody. See, now you're projecting onto everybody how you believe that you operate. There are people that will believe contrary to the evidence because they want to believe differently. It's called cognitive bias. It's called cognitive dissonance, that there are people that will believe contrary to the evidence because they have other reasons. They have emotional reasons. They have social reasons. They have social attachments. So not everybody is purely evidence-based. or even thinks that they are. Because this is the other thing that we have to deal with, is that we have biases in what we even believe about what we believe we believe. And so we can be deluded about what our process actually is as human beings. And here I'm not making a claim that in this conversation, I'm not making a claim about your position at all. All I'm trying to say is this claim that you don't choose not to believe, I'm disputing that claim. And I think you're misunderstanding what the claim is.
Yeah, because the way it's worded, it sounds like it's a personal choice not to believe, or it's a personal choice to believe, and that's what I don't follow that at all.
But that's because you're injecting
we all have
things
processes to get to a position. There might be certain processes we do, and we choose what that process is. We do that, but the conclusion part of it, to me, that is not a choice. You become convinced of one thing or another. So when you say that I choose or atheists choose not to believe, they're not choosing not to believe. They just haven't come to that conclusion that it's true. So they just do not believe.
And I'm going to keep repeating, you're misunderstanding me, because every time you try and explain what you think that means, I go, well, you're injecting things into it that aren't in the phrase. I didn't say anything about the process. You're assuming the process. You're assuming that phrase means that you found no evidence and you're still forcing yourself not to believe. And I never said anything of this.
Yeah, but when you use the word choose, whether it's to do with belief or anything, if somebody chooses something, they've made a decision to do one thing or another. And when it comes to the beliefs that I hold, me personally, the beliefs that I hold, what they are, they're not a choice to either do that one or the other one. I've become convinced or not convinced of any particular position. And what that is not the choice. Yes or no is not the choice. That's the conclusion I've come to.
Convinced means to be completely certain about something is the primary definition according to Google. The secondary definition
definitions of words. What we all know how we talk.
Paul, if you don't care about definitions of words,
you don't need to pick apart the word. When
Paul,
becomes convinced, you know what I mean in the context and what I'm using. You know what I mean when I say I'm convinced.
No, I don't. No, I don't. That's why I'm trying to figure out what your definition of convinced is. I need definitions. Otherwise, you just use convinced to mean whatever you want it to mean. And I'm sitting here going, what the fuck is he talking about? Do you care about me understanding you, or does it not matter? All that matters to you is that you believe a particular way, and I have to agree with you.
No, you don't have to agree with me. You don't have to agree with what I'm.
Well, that's why I'm trying to understand. It's not making sense to me.
Right, go on then. Look at the word definition of convinced.
Well, the first definition is completely certain about something. The second definition given by Google is firm in one's belief with regard to a particular cause or issue. There's nothing about how you come to be convinced. But you're operating as... It's like you think that you're a machine.
No.
And that the only choice you make is whether to look at the evidence or not.
Yes, that is the choice. Look at the evidence.
You've admitted that there are people that come to a conclusion even though the evidence is against it.
Yeah, people can have biases, yes. I agree that people can have biases. But if they refuse to look at the evidence, then their choice to believe something isn't necessary. I just don't get the bit, but I understand what you're saying now. We choose whether to look at the evidence or not. But I don't choose not to believe in a God. It isn't my choice not to believe. I would like it to be true, so I would actually like to believe that there is a God.
You're still redefining the phrase to mean something different than what I meant, and you're refusing to admit that I mean something different by it. So I don't see how this conversation can continue, because you keep wanting redefining what I say and disagreeing with it because you have a different definition of it.
No, what you said is... atheists choose.
I'm done with. And you're redefining that. I'm done with this. We're finished.